Okay, so we're talking about drama involving Fortnite, Epic Games, and this is a perfect time to kind of touch on the controller aim assist debate. Because this is something that I think we can just speak generally about. Because a lot of professional games have this debate of whether or not controllers should have aim assist, whether or not controllers should be allowed in general.
Yep.
You know, like I kind of feel a specific way about this myself, but I'd like to hear your general thoughts on what do you think? Should aim assist be allowed? Should controllers be allowed in competitive events? Should they be allowed in games in general? Where are you coming from, my guy?
It's such a loaded question.
Exactly, it
because
is.
every game is so different.
Uh-huh.
And even if a game does have cross-plat, even those cross-plat games act so differently.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure we have seen an example so far actually make it work even near perfection, especially because the one I was going to say is Fortnite, but we've seen, especially over the past year, the increasing amount of pro players and I would say even top-tier competitive players complain about how bad aim assist is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to look towards another example that it might work out in is maybe a game like Call of Duty, but they don't have mouse and keyboard pros. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm going to bail out.
So weird.
I'm going to bail out on this one. I'm going to take Shroud stance. Albeit for the future of esports, I would love for cross-plat mouse and keyboard controller players to play all in a single game and make it work somehow. I don't think there's ever going to be, at least in the near future, a perfect competitive balance. I'm going to take Shroud's angle and say that games can be cross-plat for casual, but when it comes to top-tier competitive or actual prize-pooled events, controller players simply cannot play alongside mouse and keyboard.
See, I kind of half agree with you on that front.
All right.
Like
If you're going to half agree, I win.
I 100% think like any event that wants to say, hey, this is a mouse and keyboard event, hey, don't blame you, 100% makes sense, right? Or they want to say, hey, this is a controller, I'm like, yeah, by all means, right? It's a very different, there's different advantages to both, right? But as someone from the FGC, I brought, it's show and tell day, my guy. It is, I brought a prop to the podcast this
is
week.
like kindergarten, dude. I feel like I feel nervous because I remember the kindergarten days where you'd have to bring an item in and like
you gotta show it to everybody. Like
show and tell.
Show and tell. It's show and tell day, my guy.
I actually forgot show and tell was a thing.
Okay, so the thing is with fighting games, right? What I just brought out on the desk for our audio listeners is my arcade stick. It's a custom hitbox.
Arcade stick. It's not a stick.
Yeah. So basically, what it does is on a normal arcade stick for fighting games, it's normally like a joystick where these red buttons are. But on mine, it's just purely buttons because it just works a little bit better for me. It's how I prefer to play, right? And technically speaking, there is a slight advantage to using something like this because I can plink out like a fireball motion on this thing. 3 frames, easy.
As compared to
as opposed to like actually having to do the full motion, it's a lot easier to just like hit those two like
If you guys can't see, he's nailing it in 3 frames. He's nailing a combination that other players could not on controllers.
And they can't. It's a little obviously if you're good enough you can do it, but it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
The one thing you can't do on a standard controller is I can hold both back to block and forward at the same time here. You can't do that with a joystick at all because it moves one direction at the same time. You can't move back and forwards at the same time.
And I think you are making a point that can be generalized to not just FGC, but to a lot of games like Fortnite.
Yeah, exactly.
When you have access to more keys, more binds, whatever it might be, there are going to be a lot more advantages. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of people would agree that mouse and keys overall has the advantage compared to controller.
Yeah. Personally, I made the switch to gaming on a PC like a couple months back, and it's night and day, I would say, personally, in terms of just accuracy level, right? And the reason I bring up custom arcade sticks like this is that these are allowed in every competitive fighting game event. Anybody can bring in whatever they want to compete with. People show up with literally there's a homeboy who shows up with a Guitar Hero guitar and just reprograms it to work with fighting games, and that's totally allowed. Because at the end of the day, on a competitive level, it's all about your choice. If you're good at the game, if you're good at the freaking game, you're good at the fundamentals, you know what you're doing, you should be able to succeed regardless of whatever input method you're using. And if you feel that one input method gives you an advantage over another, just switch.
That's the sucky part, though.
Yeah.
I understand your argument, but that's the sucky part when you have already such an established scene for so many games. You're not going to ask a guy like Scump to go from controller. And if you think mouse and keyboard is good, Scump, switch. He's so late in his he's years and years down the line. if you want people to switch, they got to be 12, 13 to 16 years old. If you want to really switch and actually become that level of after switching. We have it rare in Fortnite where people can actually switch because they are so young, but there's such an established esports player base that's, over 20 years old that they're not going to switch. Like, it's just not viable.
In a lot of ways, I think it actually is viable because we've seen like top FGC pros switch to entirely different input methods and succeed and dominate and kill it. Like Sonic Fox, for example, he plays on like a PlayStation controller a lot of the times, just straight up default, like just chilling, right? And totally fine.
But we haven't seen it anywhere else.
Yeah, we haven't. But I think that's just a matter of people in other
most
spaces.
games don't offer it.
Yeah, it's just because they don't think about it. I just think it's not something that people are used to in other esports scenes. And I have 100% faith in Scump. Like, just as an example, if he ever wanted to make the switch to mouse and keyboard, I think he could do it.
But even right now, he wouldn't be allowed to as well. Like, the scene doesn't provide for it.
Yeah,
I think to a certain degree you could be right, and that'd be cool to see. I think the only games we're going to be able to ever see this in the near future, FGC, Rocket League, and Fortnite, because they all currently allow for that to happen.
Right.
When you have games like CSGO, League of Legends, COD, they're not cross-plat. You're just not going to... I would love for Alden to open their doors, but I just don't know if that's the way the scene's going to develop,
Yeah, probably not. I don't think it's going to make that move, but I think it probably should. I think it's just good for everybody if we're realistic about, like, hey, stop being salty about this thing that's actually kind of a non-issue. I get it sucks, and you probably want to blame somebody or some reason for, like, a kill that you think you shouldn't have, like, gotten, or a death that you should think that wasn't deserved. But, at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to your individual skill. And playing on this, I've never gotten anybody, like, as much as an advantage as it gives me. If I run into a better player, they're going to beat me. Yeah. I've never gone to an event and have anybody, like, talk shit about my controller. Everybody's just fine. It's,
I think people love having something to blame.
Exactly.
And there's always going to be that, myself included.
Yeah, there's always going to be a scapegoat.
Like, I will blame 100%. Controller players. I will do that, because I'm not willing to make the switch to controller because I don't know. There's a lot of angles to go on this.
Yeah.
I think there will definitely be esports where we're going to see this transition more, where it is allowed. But there's going to be so many hard set esports that just don't have cross-plat, where we're going to continue to see the one-sided people. Yeah. And those pros will continue to actually complain about the opposite side.
Definitely don't blame that. I just feel like it's an interesting thought process.
Think about, like, there's just so many angles, man.
The option is here. Let's be a little bit more open about stuff.
Yeah, let's wait the next few years. Let's see how many pro players start switching back and forth.